friends. Welcome to another adventure with fantastic first grade frogs. Today, we're going to do one of my favorite things in the whole wide world. We're going to go down to the pond. That's right. We are having an adventure with the frogs in the pond and all the other things that live there too. So, we're going to start with this great book called Life in a Pond by Craig Hammersmith. And there's this wonderful picture of a frog right on the front cover. Life in a Pond by Craig Hammersmith. Here's the table of contents, and they tell us where we can find information on fish and turtles and birds and beavers, but we're going to read the whole book because this is a great book. The first heading says Pond Life. Plop, splash, kerplunk. Remember, those are all onomatopoeia words, right? They're sound words. Shallow ponds are smaller than lakes, but they are bursting with life. Ponds are home to all kinds of animals. Look at this great picture of a frog. Looks like it's hopping to catch a nice yummy bug. This heading says insects. Insects live in calm pond waters. Dragonflies lay eggs in ponds. Young dragonflies live in water until they become adults. So here's a picture of a dragonfly, but a baby dragonfly doesn't look anything like this. It lives under the water. It's called a dragonfly nymph, and you might find one living in a pond. Frogs. Frogs live in and around ponds. Young frogs, called tadpoles, live underwater. Then they grow legs and lungs. As adults, they breathe outside of water. And remember, these are amphibians. They live both in and out of the water. Tadpoles live in the water, and frogs can live outside of the water because they have lungs. That would be a little froglet. Some of our little tadpoles look like froglets right now. Mud puppies. Mud puppies live in ponds too. Mud puppies aren't puppies. They are amphibians like frogs and salamanders. Oh wow, look at that. It doesn't look like a puppy at all, does it? I don't know why they call them that. Because they're an amphibian. Fish. Freshwater fish live in ponds. Catfish, sunfish, and bass can all be found in ponds. They munch on insects and plants in the water. And this happens to be a catfish, and we can really tell that because of its whiskers on the front of its face. Take a look at that catfish and those really cool whiskers. Turtles. Ponds are often home to turtles. Turtles spend time swimming in the water, but they also rest in sunny places to warm up. Now this isn't an amphibian, this is a reptile. And like amphibians, they are ectothermic. They need to get their heat from outside of their bodies. They can't make their own heat, so they sit in the sun on a log to warm up. Birds. Birds go to ponds to find food. Herons stand very still in the shallow water. When fish swim by, herons spear them with their bills. And this happens to be a great blue heron. It's a very tall bird. It stands on long, skinny legs, and it waits for a fish to come by, and then it eats it. Remember, birds are endothermic. Their bodies make their own heat, so they don't need to sit in the sun to warm up. They can make their own heat. Beavers. Now, beavers are not a reptile, not an amphibian, not a bird. They are yes, you're right, a mammal. Beavers don't just live in ponds. Sometimes they make ponds. They chew down trees to build dams. The dam blocks up the water and makes a new pond. So this pile of sticks and wood that you can see back here would be a beaver dam. And that's how the beaver works to make a pond. It blocks up the water, and the water kind of piles up behind it and makes a pond. Now, in the back of this book, there are some fun facts. The first fun fact says dragonflies can't fly when their wing muscles are cold. Remember, dragonflies are not only an invertebrate, no bones, but they're also ectothermic. They need to get their heat from outside of their bodies. So they have to warm up in the sun and warm up their wing muscles so that they can move. In cold weather, fish can live under the pond's ice. They breathe air in the water that is trapped under the ice. Pretty cool, huh? Beavers build dams to surround their home or lodge with water. The water keeps predators away. So that's why the beaver builds that big old pile of sticks to make a pond, and then they build their home in the middle of the pond to keep safe. Smart beavers, huh? Mud puppies are also called mud puppies and water dogs. People once thought they barked like dogs. That's kind of silly, isn't it? Absolutely. So that's our book called Life in a Pond. Now we're going to read a bigger book right over here, also called Life in a Pond, but this author is Lisa Trumbauer. Let's take a look at Life in a Pond. The pond might look quiet and still, but take a closer look and you'll see it's a small, busy world. Animals depend on the pond for many things, like water to drink and plants to eat. So here's a picture of a raccoon getting a drink down at the pond. And this is a bull moose, or a male moose, getting some plants out of the pond. Many animals begin life in the pond. Nymphs grow underwater to become dragonflies. So this is a picture of a baby dragonfly. Doesn't look anything like a dragonfly, does it? But it grows under the water, and then it emerges as a dragonfly later on and flies away. Tadpoles grow underwater, and that looks an awful lot like our tadpoles, doesn't it? To become frogs. Wrigglers grow underwater to become mosquitoes. And these are pictures of mosquito larvae up close, and they live under the water, and they wiggle around in the water. We're going to take a look at them in a little bit. But when they grow up, they become mosquitoes and fly away. Many plants grow in the pond too. Look at these water lilies. Beautiful. Plants provide food and are good places for animals to hide. Can you see the bird hiding here? There's a red-winged blackbird right here, a female one, and she's hiding right there. She's the same color as those plants. Can you find the frog? There's a green frog right here. It has duckweed all the way around it, and it's hiding right there in all that duckweed. Some birds build their nests in the plants. And here's a red-winged blackbird, and she has built her nest in the old last year's cattails that have kind of been bent down by the snow. And so she's built her nest there, and she'll have her babies there, and she's hiding among all the new cattails that have grown up around her nest. The shore is also important. Turtles lay their eggs there, and this picture shows that this mommy turtle has laid some eggs, and she'll bury them in the sand. This happens to be a snapping turtle. Kind of a big turtle, isn't she? Many plants and animals of the pond are part of the food chain. Plants are eaten by insects. So this is a male mosquito that's eating some of the plant, which are eaten by fish. Here's an archer fish, and it's eating the mosquito, which are eaten by birds. And so the fish could get eaten by a great blue heron. So this is a food chain. The plants are being eaten by the mosquito gets eaten by the fish gets eaten by the heron. So it's a chain. They're all related. They're all linked together. Are any of those things trying to be mean to each other? No, they just need to eat. With so many different animals in and around a pond, here we have a crayfish and a snail and a barred tiger salamander, and of course, some ducks. with their ducklings too. What do you think you'll find the next time you visit one? This boy's down by the pond to see what he can see. You never know what you'll find by the pond. Now we're going to go down to visit a pond and see what we can find. So let's go on down to the pond right now. Hi, we're down at the pond, which looks very beautiful, very clear, good water quality down here. You can hear all the birds, and I'll stop talking for a minute so you can hear them. And I can see just what we've come for down here. There's about, I'd say about a jillion tadpoles right down here. So I'm going to kind of tiptoe through here and scoop up some tadpoles in my bucket. You want to watch me fall in? I need my other bucket. Thank you. Lost my flip-flop. Ooh, lost it again. Gonna end up losing tadpoles if I'm not careful. Wow. I got pretty mucky. And I smell pretty mucky. Wow, this is lots of fun. Okay, so we're going to take these back over and take a look at what we scooped up in our beautiful buckets of tadpoliness. So let's take a look in this bucket. We can see those little tadpoles. They look like a little round ball with a tail, swimming around and around in the bucket. The water's a little cloudy because it's been stirred up, but we can see them swimming around. Now I've poured them into a bigger tank so that we can see them a little bit better. And then we can see a lot of them swimming around at the top of the water, going back and forth. They go really fast, don't they? Now these are not the same kind of tadpoles that we have in our tank for our classroom. These are toad tadpoles. They will not grow into green frogs like the ones we have at school. They will grow into toads. Here's a close-up of a little tadpole. He's very small. He fits in this little bowl and he can swim around and around and around and around in it, which is what he's doing. You can see that he just looks like a little oval with a tail, and the tail goes back and forth in the water to push him forward. He can go pretty quickly. Now we're here by my ditch. Now there's quite a bit of grass in here because Alex mowed the lawn yesterday. But underneath all that grass, there's some really good water. And lots of living things. We can hear the little frog that likes to jump in whenever I come over here. He's down in there and he keeps making noise. I think it's a green frog because he's making that sort of sound. And there's all kinds of things swimming around in the water in the ditch. A lot of people just look at water like this and they say, oh, it's just some water. But there's all kinds of living things in here. I see lots just looking down like this. So I'm going to scoop up some water into my bucket so we can take a really good look at what lives in the ditch. Let's take it up here so we can take a look at who lives in the ditch. So here's a close-up of what's going on in the bucket. You can see I've scooped up some leaves and bits of grass down there in the bottom of the bucket. And you can see closer to the top there are mosquito larvae kind of wiggling by. Toward the middle you can see some smaller creatures. They're kind of in the shape of an oval, and you can kind of see one in the middle of the screen right there, kind of traveling around in the water, swimming around, doing its thing. And lots of mosquito larvae swimming around at the top of the bucket. Now, those leaves in the bottom are there to give the creatures a place to hide. They need shelter, they need a place to go to feel safe. So some of the creatures like to live down there in the bottom. That's where we can find some snails, as a matter of fact. But you can see the mosquito larvae like to wiggle around at the top. Now, a lot of people don't like mosquito larvae because mosquito larvae grow up to be mosquitoes and then they bite people. But they do perform a very necessary service for the pond. They clean the water. They eat smaller creatures that live in the water that we wouldn't really want in the water. So they do a service in that way. And then they also, when they grow up, get eaten by other creatures. So they have a part to play in the pond ecosystem, even though humans don't really like to have them around. If you don't want mosquitoes in your yard, you might want to dump out, if you have maybe a sand pail or a trash can lid that's been rained in, sometimes those can get mosquito larvae in them. So you'd want to make sure that you dump those out after the rain to keep the mosquitoes out of your yard. But in a pond, mosquito larvae are important. Here's some teeny weeny little ones swimming around up close so we can get an up close view of those teeny weeny little wigglies. You can see they bend their whole body to swim. And then of course we do see that little oval creature swimming around way down there in the bottom at the left. Here's a snail. This one was down in the bottom with the leaves and he was having a happy snail time, so I brought him out so you could take a closer look at him. He's actually going pretty fast for a snail, isn't he? Bye, snail. Now in this one, we're trying to get you a closer look at some of the little tiny creatures that live in the water. You can see the little oval creatures that are kind of swimming around down there. They could be Daphnia, but I'm not sure. And they just kind of zip around in the water, doing their own thing. They keep hiding in the crack of the little box we have them in. I guess they don't want their picture taken. But they just kind of swim in and out of the picture. You can see them kind of scooting around down there. And they came right out of that ditch water. They do look like they're having fun down there, don't they? Here's a female Cyclops right in the middle of the box. She's kind of pink with two little black parts sticking off the back. And finally, a little water beetle. Now it's like a lady beetle, except that it's a water beetle instead of a lady beetle. Lives in the water, has to come up to breathe sometimes because it does breathe air. And it's swimming around and around really fast in the little cup. And it was hard to get a close up because I don't think he really liked being in the little cup. But you can see how he kind of rests sometimes with two legs sticking out like that. And the rest of the time he was just going really fast around the cup. Isn't it amazing how fast these creatures are? We've had a lot of fun with ponds today, and ditch water too, haven't we? Isn't it amazing how many things live in and around a pond, or just a ditch? Just some water that happened to be sitting there in the ditch. It doesn't look like a lot. It doesn't look like anything lives there, but really there are just hundreds of animals that live in and around little ponds and ditches everywhere. It's amazing, isn't it? So the next time you go by a little bit of water, see what you can see. Use your eyes, use your ears, use your five senses, not taste, and see what kinds of animals and plants you can find down by the pond. That's it for our fantastic first grade frogs today. We'll see you next time. Bye!